How's it going, everyone? It's Ben Foggins Media Corner back again with a brand new video for today. Welcome back to another movie review, aka After I Saw. This time for this new episode for the series is going to be my review on the 2024 sci-fi thriller, and that is ISS, which also stands for International Space Station. And in this film, tensions flare in the near future aboard the International Space Station when a worldwide conflict breaks out on Earth, and soon the US and Russian astronauts receive orders from the ground in which the orders are they have to take control of the station by any means necessary. So that's pretty much the story of ISS. Now, I never saw a single trailer for this film going into it, but I did see the posters for this film, like this one I'm using. And when I first saw it, at first I thought it was going to be like some kind of sci-fi horror film, which I like those movies when it comes to the sci-fi genre. But no, this is not a horror film that's set in space, because this is in fact a sci-fi thriller. And I enjoyed those movies quite a bit when it comes to those kind of sci-fi movies, namely Gravity being one of them, which is one of my favorite sci-fi thrillers. And I didn't even know much of the people who were involved with the film, like who was directing it. Although, from what I've heard, this is from the director of Megan Levy, who made this film. And when it comes to Megan Levy, I think it is a pretty good movie. And I didn't even know much of the stars other than Ariana DeBose, who's a terrific actress, Oscar winner from the West Side Story remake, which she was amazing in that movie. And so this film came out in the beginning of this year in the U.S., but we didn't get this until a couple months later after it was released in the U.S., in which it came out around springtime, which it came out on the exact same day as Challengers did, as well as with Boy Kills World, which I went to see those films first. And so I saw this movie a couple weeks after it was released, after those two movies, and after viewing this movie, I overall thought this film wasn't too bad here. It's not by means a great film. I just overall think this film was overall a decent watch here. First off, the acting in the film I thought was overall pretty strong here from Ariana DeBose, which she gave a good performance in the movie as the main lead, and everyone else for the most part, they all gave strong performances here. But when it comes to some of the characters in the film, they didn't have much development to them whatsoever, and it did make them a bit weak. But still, though, the acting for the most part isn't too bad here. And the direction of this film I thought was pretty nice to look at, especially for a few of the sets in the film, which looks pretty nice to look at, since this is set in a International Space Station, and all of that looks pretty nice. And yeah, it does give does give you a bit of claustrophobia feeling to yourselves as you watch the film, because it's set in a pretty claustrophobic setting. And there are times where it does get really intense, which I thought all that was pretty nice. And there are times where the film does use a bit of shaky cam, in which it didn't really bother me that much, even though I'm not really like the biggest fan of shaky cams. Like, there are times where I don't mind it, but when there are times where they do use them lots, I'm just like, nah. And there are times where the film does use CGI, which there's a handful of it that was decent at best, but there's a few handful of it that did look pretty bad, where there are times where the CGI does look noticeable for a few scenes. And the concept is pretty interesting, but it's just the story for the film I kind of felt was questionable. Like, after the first 30 minutes of the film, when it moves on, and where it's about to wrap up towards the end of the film, it did feel a bit questionable for a few parts of the film. And there are times where it does have a few like essence from like other like sci-fi thrillers that have done this before in the past, which have done better jobs of that. And the pacing of the film I thought was a bit rough, despite being an hour and 36 minutes, which is a pretty acceptable runtime here. But there are times where a few scenes do drag on a little bit here. But overall, in the end, guys, ISS, I overall had a decent enough time here watching this new sci-fi thriller. And if you're a fan of sci-fi thrillers, or you're a fan of like space movies that's set in like space stations, this may be a cup of tea here. So that's pretty much all I have to say about ISS. I'm going to give ISS 3 out of 5. Yeah, as I mentioned before, this movie wasn't too bad for myself to experience with, and it certainly isn't a movie I would like rewatch over and over again. This movie would just be like a one-time watch, and it certainly isn't like the next new sci-fi thriller classic since Gravity or anything like that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching for my AK After I Saw review on ISS, and let me know what you think of this movie if you have seen this already, or if you just recently checked out this film. Did you really enjoy this, or just know your cup of tea? As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been Foggins Media Corner signing off.